On the first Sunday of Lent, the readings remind us of two very important truths. First, temptation wins when we forget who we are. Second, Jesus overcomes temptation because he never forgets who he is. First, temptation begins when we forget who we are. In the first reading, Adam and Eve had everything. They were created by God, loved by God, and cared for by God. They were already complete. But the devil did not begin by offering them something evil. He began by planting doubt. Did God really say? Is God really good? Is God really taking care of you? That small doubt was enough. Once they doubted God's love, Adam and Eve also doubted their own worth. And once they forgot who they were, they reached for something that was not meant for them. This is exactly how temptation works in real life. Most sins do not begin with desire, they begin with forgetfulness. We forget that we are loved, so we look for love in the wrong places. We forget that we are enough, so we try to prove ourselves through money, status, or power. We forget that God is with us, so we take shortcuts, compromise values, and justify dishonesty. Why does corruption happen? Often because people feel they are nothing unless they take more. Why do families break apart? Often because someone forgets they are already loved and starts looking elsewhere. Why do people drown in addictions, pleasures, and endless distractions? Often because deep inside they feel empty and they forget that God already fills them. Most of the time, we do not sin because we are evil, but because we forget who we are. That is why Lent is not mainly about giving up rice, coffee, or social media. Lent is about remembering our true identity. This Lent, God gently tells us again, "You are my child. I love you. You are already enough." Second, Jesus overcomes temptation because he knows he is God's beloved Son. In the Gospel, Jesus is tempted immediately after his baptism. At that baptism, the Father clearly said, "You are my beloved Son." And notice how the devil begins, "If you are the Son of God." The devil attacks Jesus at the level of identity. If you are hungry, prove it. If you are powerful, show it. If you are important, impress everyone. But Jesus refuses to play that game. He does not turn stones into bread. He does not jump from the temple to gain attention. He does not choose power over obedience. Why? Because Jesus does not need to prove anything. He knows who he is. He trusts the Father completely. That is the secret of his strength. Jesus defeats temptation not by force, but by clarity of identity. Third, applying this to our daily lives. This is very practical. When you are tempted to lie, cheat, or take what is not yours, pause and remember, I am a child of God. I do not need this to be worthy. When you feel pressured to compete, compare, or prove yourself, pause and remember, I am already loved. I do not need to impress. When you feel discouraged, tired, or tempted to give up, pause and remember, God has not abandoned me. He is with me in this desert. When you are tempted to hurt others with words, anger, or bitterness, pause and remember, I am a beloved child of God, called to love, not to destroy. Lent invites us to slow down, be silent, and listen again to God's voice. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of comparison, not the voice of temptation, but the voice that says, "You are mine." Final words. Temptation becomes strong when identity becomes weak, but temptation loses its power when identity is clear. Lent is a journey back, not to perfection, but back to our true selves as beloved children of God. If we remember who we are, we will remember how to live.